What's your take on this Kentucky team tonight? They had the big upset win against Tennessee last week before that game on Saturday.
Well, first, let's say this. Kentucky as a dog this year, not only 4-0 against the spread, but they pulled a 4.5-point upset at Miss State, a 5.5-point upset versus Duke in a neutral setting, a 6.5-point upset versus Gonzaga in a neutral setting, and a 10.5-point upset at Tennessee, in a game you mentioned. Kentucky is a very fast-tempo team. They're number 38. They're also a poor defensive team. When you look at like Torvik since the turn of the calendar, Kentucky is the number one most efficient offense. Their defense is over 150. It is not good. You look at Ole Miss, though. They're in a bit of a funk themselves. You are 1-4 straight up. You have failed to cover 4 straight games. And at home, you're 4-6 ATS overall. But how about this number, Steve? Ole Miss in the first half at home, you want to talk about slow starts? They are 1-9 against the spread. Now, that situation would say, I like Kentucky or I like Kentucky first half, but I can't get there for just one reason. Kentucky's best player, point guard Lamont Butler. No question about it. He's missed the last 2 games. So that Kentucky upset against Tennessee is even better, knowing that Butler didn't play, and then he wasn't there against Arkansas. I can't back Kentucky in a true road game, even though they won at Tennessee, if Butler does not go. If I read later that Butler is going and is 100% healthy, I may actually take a look at this game. But for my best bet here on WagerTalk today, I am going to go team total Ole Miss over 80.5. Again, we've talked about Kentucky's defense. Ole Miss's offense, they do not turn the ball over, folks. They are number 3 in the country in fewest turnovers. Guess what? Kentucky's defense is number 341. So you have a team that is not going to have pressure against an opponent that may not have their point guard covering your point guard with an efficient offense against a very inefficient defense for the Wildcats. So for me, team total, the Rebel over 80.5.
It's a little SEC basketball. That is your ESPN game at 7 Eastern tonight. Kentucky, Ole Miss. Kentucky goes from being a double-digit dog, double-digit favorite, now to a dog again on the road. And as Ralph said, they've actually been better in that role, as we saw on Saturday when they did not show up against Arkansas as a big home favorite. Another game in the SEC at 7 Eastern, Ralph. This one on the SEC Network is Florida and Vanderbilt. Both teams coming off blowout losses on Saturday. I'm doing a top 25 college basketball video every Friday night for the big game Saturday, and I told people in the video I liked Tennessee Saturday. It was a strong best bet for my clients at WagerTalk. The line was jumping around, went from 4 to 5 down to 2.5, back to 3, because 2 of Tennessee's top 3 players did not play in the game. But just like the NBA, it didn't matter. They ended up winning by over 20. It was such a great spot. They had lost by 30 to Florida, Tennessee, coming off back-to-back losses. So I don't really penalize Florida for the blowout loss on Saturday, Ralph. But then again, Vandy lost by 30. Which team do you think bounces back tonight? Florida, an 11.5-point favorite at home.
Well, Vandy got a lot of attention early in the season. And, Steve, you talked about those ratings and how many SEC teams were at the top of the standings. This is almost a historically good conference. If you look at Ken Palm's ratings for the SEC, the worst team in the conference is LSU at about 78. If you look at the ACC this year, they have 8 teams that are ranked number 99 and higher. So think about that. The LSU team in the SEC would be a middle-of-the-road team in this year's weak ACC. So something to think about when we get into March Madness with the competitiveness of these conferences. Now, we talk about revenge, and Florida has revenge. Florida lost as a 9-point away favorite last year in March. And in fact, Florida has lost 3 of the last 4 meetings to Vanderbilt. Now, Vanderbilt is a team, their basketball team and their football are basically the same. When you travel to Nashville, the crowds haven't been historically good. And I think a lot of times SEC teams look down when you travel to play Vanderbilt. But now, with Vanderbilt's early upset, beating Tennessee as a home dog, beating Kentucky as a home dog, beating Nevada Wolfpack as a dog. You're looking at a situation where teams are not looking past or taking Vanderbilt as lightly. But when I look at Vanderbilt in true road games, they've only played 5 true road games. The favorite has covered all 5 of those by 10 points per game. Now, I wanted to mention the gold sheet, and I went to the gold sheet to see if they had any notes about this. So I'm going to rattle off these notes from the gold sheet. Florida may be coming off a 20-point loss to Tennessee, but they made more free throws and field goals in that contest. The reason they lost, their star 2 players, Martin and Clayton, 5 of 25 from the floor. They couldn't bounce back. In their 2 games this year off a loss, after losing to Kentucky, they beat Tennessee by 30. After losing to Missouri, they crushed Texas by 24. In the 16-team SEC, Vanderbilt is number 14 in defensive efficiency, last in field goal shooting allowed, 15th in the number of free throws they allow. They foul a lot. And last in 3-point shooting allowed. So you have all those negative defensive categories is a situation where I will look for the Florida team total to go over. I also do like the team total over as well. Florida presses the pace as much as anyone. They're number 31 in offensive tempo. Vanderbilt number 30 in offensive tempo. So I'm going to split this best bet. Full game over the total. Florida team total over the total. We'll see if the Gators can get it done for us this evening.
Yeah, and by the way, that full game total right now about 155 as we check the WagerTalk live odds screen, which is free at WagerTalk.com. And Ralph, I forgot to mention it is $5 $2. I'm old school. $5 Tuesday, which is better, by the way, than the old $2 Tuesday because that was one capper once a week. $5 Tuesday is every capper, every Tuesday, every week. So Ralph's got a $5 play. I've got a $5 play. Oprah Winfrey's got a $5 play. We all get a car. $5 Tuesday. Ralph, what do you have going on? What do you got at WagerTalk.com?
Well, I have a $5 college basketball revenge game of the week. But, Steve, I want to mention this. If you have not loaded the free WagerTalk Super Bowl guide, head to my homepage. Again, absolutely free. Check out how 45 props have done over the last 15 years. It has the last 6 years of Super Bowl stats, both team and players. It's fun because it shows you what squares have hit how many times. But before you make a prop bet, make sure you check out that sheet and find out some of the incredible records that have occurred over the last 15 years in Super Bowl action.